everyone. I'm Rob Gurzeev, CEO and co-founder of CyCognito. For those who don't know, CyCognito, we're one of the leaders in attack surface management and focus on helping Global 2000 enterprises understand where is their stuff and what's exploitable to attackers. Today with me, we have Gadi Evron, who many of you know, founder and CEO of Gnostic and CISO-in-Residence for AI at Cloud Security Alliance. Gadi, great to have you here. And where are you today?
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. I'm actually in Tel Aviv. I travel so much. I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think last time you and I met was about a year ago in Tel Aviv. I don't remember if it was much quieter or about the same.
Something like that.
Missiles-wise back then, but it was super fun to see you. And I remember we talked about one of the things was state of AI, where things really are, which is not straightforward in many ways. And so much has happened over the last 12 months. So maybe we can just start with, well, number one, personally, any interesting things to report on from the last 12 months or so. And on the AI side, the big things you have seen over the last 12 months that are most interesting.
Can we do last 2 weeks? I mean, looking back to 2023, we all thought it's going to be about some prompts defending us or attacking us, right?
Yep.
And looking back to a little bit later than that, we all thought the DLP firewall gateway is going to save us, right? I never thought that, but still, many people did for good reason, right? And now one of the latest buzzwords is identity and authorization. We all care about identity and authorization, but we haven't even managed to do it for people. So to try to do it for agents is ridiculous. But the big things, I mean, just the last 2 weeks, crazy things have happened. But number one, let's throw the buzzword out there and immediately move away from it, mythos, right? And the thing about mythos is it's just a name that encompasses 2-3 years of research. So a lot of people have been into how do we find vulnerabilities with AI for many, well, months, couple of years. And then mythos comes along and breaks or breaches, if you like, the New York Times, CNN barrier. And from that point on, every Congress person, board member, parent, child knows about it. So it was all marketing and all hype. There's a lot of truth behind it. It's honestly in truth bigger than the hype. But how do you separate it? How do you even deal with all that? So that's the biggest thing, right? But I think that before I start going into lossy compression and attention and deeper things here, I'll throw 4 things your way. Number one, at the 100,000 feet view, I think it's becoming clear that we're moving from a world of deterministic configuration to non-deterministic configuration. People talk about code, non-deterministic code, English, right? And how do we secure or do access control for the English language, right? But when our configuration is monitored, controlled, and enforced by agents, we can't really trust what we're seeing or what's happening. So how do we work in that world, right? How do we do any of that? A second thing, from I would say all the way down to 5,000 feet, more technical, tactical, operational on the ground, is the attackers had their singularity moment. They now know what it means for LLMs to be involved in attack. In defense, we do use AI, but we haven't had that yet, right? We still try to automate what we did. We try to create some workflows. And it's not that we're not making progress, but we haven't had that aha moment of how AI helps us, saves us, pushes us forward, right? At least mostly, or maturely, or in a way that's consistent. And I can't wait for that. I think it'll be wonderful. But at the same time, from a 50,000 feet perspective, I think that, or 30,000 feet perspective, the one power we truly have is agents. Meaning coding agents specifically, not necessarily for coding, let's not be scared by that. Salesforce just became from a 15,000 coders organization an 85,000 engineers organization.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody there is now measured and stays working there if they use Cloud Code. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea of citizen coders, so it's no longer just developers, right? It's everybody who has the power. And I think we have to do it because otherwise we don't yet have autonomous capabilities like attackers do, but we can at least empower our people and move at machine speed. And number 4, which is, of course, also I'm very biased about. I'll add a different number 4 and then say what I'm biased about, just to make it even. Is the minute everybody is creating their own infrastructure, the minute everybody is their own developer, it's not about shadow AI anymore or shadow IT. It's AI everywhere. And honestly, when everybody creates their own infrastructure IT workflows, IT itself is fragmented. It's no longer centrally managed. So there are a lot of aspects about the assumptions we make about building a security program that shift even beyond time to exploitation or the zero-day clock. But my own number 5 would be, we have to defend these agents and we have to do it right now. How is a whole different thing. So I'm CEO of Gnostic, where we defend agents. And I'm not here to pitch, but I'm definitely biased, but I also believe it's the truly important thing to do right now. Deploy agents, don't be in the way because people will not care and bypass you. And just do it anyway. Security used to slow down the business. Now the business is slow down people. They just want to move. They want to feel safe doing it. So those would be my big 5, even though I can add 50 more.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get to a few more, but there is so much to talk about and so much happened over the last year. I completely agree, and I would say that the biggest thing I'm seeing, and again, there's so much to choose from, is indeed like the Salesforce example you shared, which is citizen developers or everyone can now build stuff. I like to say that now even HR people and finance that might be the last people you'd expect to build
My God,
application.
A friend of mine calls me up 2 weeks ago and says, Gadi, I'm so scared. I'm like, what's going on? He's the CTO of a company.
Yeah.
Says, one of my salespeople calls me up and says, Claude is telling me to use GitHub. What's GitHub?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Helping you, asking you for help to debug something. Yeah. So right, 2 years ago, I don't think we could even imagine. I couldn't imagine everyone starting to build stuff, and for that actually to make impact. And I completely agree that the risk landscape and attack surface and all of that completely change. And I think you're right. Maybe even shadow AI or shadow assets are not as useful of a term when everyone can create random stuff. And I also agree that the fact that it's not deterministic and very hard to control. For example, you can put in your Claude and Markdown files that you would deploy at the whole team, right? You can tell those Claude files, don't do X, Y, and Z. But in so many situations with Claude Code, it would still do what you're asking it not to do.
If you remember, I think you're not that old, dude, but you're old enough to remember Jurassic Park, right?
Right.
So you remember the meme now? Well, it's a meme now, not a movie anymore. Life finds a way. So my thing right now is
yes,
agents find a way, right? You can work on your basics. They find a way.
It could not be more true. Yeah. Because you have that salesperson trying to debug something.
And you might not even know what the agent does, as you said a second ago, right? And the thing is, whenever I see one of these incidents happening around agents, I see most of my friends going and working on their basics or hardening GitHub or whatever it is. And it makes sense. We always want to work on the basics. I personally have a beef with that because going on a side quest for a second, the basics are not just about hygiene and best practices, or tech debt. They are about our dislike in security for the silver bullet. There are economic papers about how we like to buy the silver bullet, the latest, coolest, innovative technology, whether it helps us or not, or works or not.
Right.
But the way we treat the basics is the counterweight to that. Do your basics. is annoying to me because we made it the silver bullet. And if you look at, I will say nearly because I'm speaking English right now. If you look at nearly every single data breach report out there, there is always admin or an unpatched machine or
Right.
an
Yeah,
uncovered,
many. Yeah.
and they keep being introduced. And there's always something like that. And we point to the left, say, they should have done their basics. They tried. Maybe not everybody, maybe not necessarily the same way. They tried. And now with agents, 30 years, 40 years, 20 years of debt is coming to call. And even if it didn't, agents find a way. Secure your agents. So you might say, I will not deploy agents if I can't secure them. Well, who's asking you? You're just security.
Yeah. That's
So I went
actually
on
a
a side
great
quest.
point. And I'm glad you brought it up because, yes, we are seeing a lot of, for example, MCPs and AI applications that have extremely minimal, if any, security, and they often have access to some of the most sensitive and most interesting data and intellectual property that this company has. But you're also seeing massively more, and we are now releasing this AI pen testing capability that takes these exposure signals and actually tries to exploit them. So we're seeing even more default credentials, no authentication, stupid misconfigurations, and things like that.
And that's critical, by the way, because the only thing that would actually allow us to be on top of these basics is the agents we're afraid of.
Right.
Because we can't move at human speed. So you doing that actually allows organizations to finally catch up.
Yep. That's the only way, I believe.
Yeah, and that's when my company comes in and secures them. So I'm happy. But
yep. No, I think that's huge, and I think that it seems like risk leaders are not even aware, like how extreme it can be. Of course, they are by and large, but at least when you see some of the examples, it's just too crazy. And I like what you said earlier about Jurassic Park, which I have seen when it was released. And, it's a little bit like being that crazy general manager or whatever or owner of that Jurassic Park, where someone brings you this crazy technology. You don't understand that domain or technology at all, but now you have access to all of this stuff.
And to be
it's
fair,
so easy to make fun decisions.
If you are an expert, if you are the manager of that park and you're an expert, you're a PhD and you were in business for 20 years and you actually did it all yourself and now you're just like, still, I want people to come out of here today with a positive, optimistic message, but it all changes on you in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the industry itself in knowing what it needs, knowing what it wants, what happens in the business. It changed, like MCP servers, now it will be skills or hooks or whatever it is that might end up happening.
Yeah.
Right. And if I have to connect to just what you just said, beyond, like, so for example, the configuration aspect, critical, right? But even with that, the industry is shifting on us because this year, for example, if you read the DBIR data breach report from Verizon, this year is the first year where it wasn't two-factor authentication issues. It wasn't phishing. I don't know what they actually write over there. I haven't read it in a few years, even though it's a great report. Just didn't have the time. But it's not a classic misconfiguration. It's actually vulnerabilities that allow people to get in.
Yeah.
But being the industry we are, it takes us about 10 years to change our narrative of that. So for example, in 2004, I was at the conference. I'm going on a side quest, but I will pull it back with my undiagnosed ADHD. I was at the conference, and every CISO on stage, it was a CISO conference, said, well, we all know that eventually most attacks come from the inside. That has not been true since the internet was invented or became publicly widely known, or BBS is even, but still, it remained an industry truth. And I think we must consider these misconfigurations. We must work on them. Agents now allow us to do it. But at the same time, vulnerabilities are now something we should consider as a top priority because it's shifted under us.
Yeah.
Even if, and I'll bring it back now, I think it's not just about time to exploitation or discovery of vulnerabilities themselves, but rather, I want to go back to kind of tie it back to what you said about the wider world, what you see and with your customers and the internet. It's that our very assumptions behind how we build security programs are shifting. So the classic one right now is vulnerabilities are hard to find. No, I'm not saying all vulnerabilities at this stage, but that's a point. There are much more complex ways of doing it. Point code and see what you find, right?
Yeah.
Verifying them is a different issue, exploitable is a different issue, but still trivial, right? To a degree. I'm hedging. It is trivial, not for everything. But then time to exploitation. The zero-day clock came out at an unprompted conference in March, and they showed it used to be a few years, now it's hours.
Yeah, great resource.
It is. But now we're seeing there are other aspects that are shifting. For example, we can no longer rely on CVEs. We can't rely on threat intelligence being timely like KV for vulnerabilities. To flip it around, for a long time now, we can't rely, for example, on phishing not being written in bad English, right?
Yeah.
But can we rely on people we're talking to actually being real people?
Yeah.
Or if we're to bring it back to AppSec, for example, we are relying, this is between AppSec and I would say operations, on patches existing, right? And not to mention deploying them on time, or the way we shift our event are very advised, and I'll end with that, where on the one hand we tell people, please wait on your patching. There could be supply chain issues, wait 90 days, a week. On the other hand, patch immediately because there's a vulnerability out there and the patch is not going to, like an assumption, will a patch even be ready on time? Can we deploy it if it's available? So I'm thinking we should spend a lot more time on the very assumptions we make. And the reason I did end on that is I want to stop talking about these assumptions beyond the ones that are like 3 months ago. If I would have told you, you cannot rely on.
What would you say, Gadi, that are maybe core assumptions many risk leaders make that are maybe completely
so
not
I just went through them, but my point is I'll go through two more that people can't accept yet, because if you go back to March, people did not accept time to exploitation as collapsed. For example, if you look back a few years, a new worm would come out, and I'll put it another way. A new vulnerability would come out, a 0-day, and you would say, wait, is there a POC on the dark web? Okay, there isn't, probably about 3 to 6 weeks until it happens, then 3 to 6 weeks until
the timeline has completely changed.
And you could have chosen to not keep your people over the weekend. Or for example, you could assume you're going to have 1 to 4 once a year, huge incidents, vulnerability, 0-day incidents in a year. Now you should expect them every day. 3-4 months ago, that would not have been acceptable now with all the supply chain aspects. But people are not yet ready in their narrative to think about aspects such as, I need to run my security program. To take into...
I think we would agree intellectually at this point over the last 6 months.
I'll give you an example where they don't or can't. And honestly, if they did, it wouldn't help them right now. Can you build with our current technologies, with endless budget, a security program for a medium-sized organization that could deal with 5 continuous live breaches every day and maintain operations safely? We're not in the place where we can accept that kind of assumption yet. And again, I want to add on a positive note, and I kind of went on a tantrum for a second here. It's my thing. But I truly believe that one of the most important things for us is not necessarily technological. It's like, how can I adopt new technologies in less than 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years? Everything must compress in the timeline because the timeline is not waiting for us.
Yep. That's definitely true. And I think that with AI, the scary thing is everyone is actually pushing everyone inside the company, between companies, Wall Street. Everyone is pushing everyone to adopt AI, build new stuff. So maybe it's not 100 more vendors, but it's 1,000 more applications and agents, maybe 10,000 more agents and other things, doing things for you, changing things for you. So from my perspective, actually, most folks would completely agree with the compressed timeline. Operationally, they would, I think, either say, or in any case, the reality is operationally, almost no one is there yet, regardless of budget also, to your point. The other thing, though, that I think a few security organizations understand, agree with intellectually, that is starting to change, is also the aspect of scale and coverage. I think that when we're discussing capabilities, quote unquote, features, different aspects, we're really thinking about depth. Can this thing do X, Y, and Z? But not enough. Can this cover all of my stuff or all of the meaningful use cases. And that seems to be one of the biggest problems, especially if you assume that attackers are mostly external and they're going to pursue the path of least resistance. To your point, it's now very easy with Cloud Code or what have you to not just find vulnerabilities, but even exploit vulnerabilities. Domain takeover now takes 2 minutes. Building a whole campaign around a cross-site scripting vulnerability can now take 15, 20 minutes. Like the whole infrastructure that used to take 10 years ago, maybe weeks, or call it weeks, now can take 10, 15 minutes ago, even to a non-technical person. So that coverage and scale aspect is one of the things not enough people talk about. I think that as risk leaders see more and more incidents that are attributed attaching low priority assets, like this MCP you haven't even known about. And in an unauthenticated way, it accidentally exposed your Salesforce or SAP data. Now you're telling yourself, oh shit, I need to take care of the scale aspect. And this AI thing over here is super cool. I love it. The board loves that we're doing it. But I need something else. I need something to take care of the scale aspect. What are you seeing, Gadi, in that respect?
I like to hear the sound of my own voice, but I just agree with you.
Okay, excellent.
I think it's one of the key aspects of how to deal with this. Everything needs to be considered under the assumption of scale.
Of course. So it sounds like you agree with me, but do you disagree about whether risk leaders pursue that, prioritize it?
It's not. So I talk to probably hundreds of CISOs all the time, and it's not that they disagree. There is a lot of confusion, even the experts among them, and there are a lot of experts among them. What am I supposed to invest in now?
Mm-hmm.
What's important now? Is it what my board is asking about? Is it about what I believe technologically is important?
For sure.
Is it about, like, I might decide to smartly prioritize defending agents and I will not touch their supply chain, and then the GitHub data breach happens. And that's what I discovered through data breaches, what I did not invest in or did not prioritize. And now I need to deal with MCP servers and skills and hooks and VS Code extensions, this entire agentic supply chain, right? So I would say the biggest challenge is, where do I start? And where do I see value? And where do I make progress, right? That's 3 things, but it's all around the starting point.
Yep.
So scale definitely matters. And if you don't, the only way to get there is to either work with your vendors and work or work with your people. What I mean by that is demand your vendors give you what you need. It's quite possible they will not be able to, right? But if you have a network security vendor, web security vendor, an endpoint security vendor, and attack surface management security vendor, demand, not that they just give you the support, but rather, I would say, demand they keep up. They tell you how they keep up. Allow you to be embedded into their roadmap. Ask them to inform you when things happen that you don't know about yet, that they need to develop for you in their roadmap. And on the other end of this, change the way you work to work with more startups. Consider, maybe the startup will die in a quarter, but for right now, I will learn, I will find more things, I'll be relevant, because things will keep changing. And I guess I would frame it as follows. The very business model for how startups, but business in general is working, is changing. There is no more moat. There is no differentiation. Anybody can open up Cloud Code and write things. It's not it's not that simple, and bringing things to production is it's harder. But I don't buy software anymore. I just tell Cloud what to do, and it's good enough for me, right? When it comes to, for example, something that will take me months and months to stabilize, or even weeks, I don't build it, I buy, right? And but it changes all the time. So there's a lot of aspects to what does it mean to not have a moat. But I bring it, or for example, to when everything changes, 90 days to product market fit. If I have product market fit, 90 days to product market fit. I want to have an idea of what I want to even go extreme and pivot every month. whether I do or don't. So a couple of examples. One, my research team is no longer under engineering. It's no longer R&D. It's no longer helping marketing. It's its own unit. And it literally has the job of finding me a new pivot to 3 every month. It's so painful to remove really good engineers and researchers from engineering. You need them, especially now when everything changes. But how am I to stay on top of the changing market? How am I to create features that are outside the regular product to engineering pipeline? How am I to look at what's possible, plausible technologically, as opposed to what's coming in from customers, to stay on top of it? Worst case scenario, I learned a lot. Good scenario is I released it in open source. Best case scenario, sorry, a very good case scenario is it's now a feature and engineering is maintaining it. And the very best case scenario is I pivoted my entire company. Or the worst case, depending where you come with this problem. And one more example I'll go into, not so much about the moat or the 90 days to product market fit or the research, is on the very engaged model. I think we sell products, but we must consider our engaged model a consultancy model, services. We don't sell services, but why would the customer need me in a year or in 6 months? So when everything is on fire on some Friday night, morning, whatever it is, Sunday, I want them to know I'll be there with them.
Yeah, you have to be there.
When something changes in the market, I want them to know I will be on top of it and keep them safe. And I want somebody who will pivot like crazy, just all the time with me. I want to know I'm part of their roadmap. So the whole engagement model, I feel, is shifting. And what scares me, that's a strong word, is the very way people engage with software is changing. I'm not just talking about put it inside Claude Code for me instead of an outside software or hardware, whatever it is. I'm not even talking about no more UI, just engage with the agent. That's your customer, which is mind-blowing. I would say right now, if I want to use something, I tell Claude Code, go to that URL, go to that repo, use that skill. I want to use my software the same way. My software in my startup is not built for that. And how do I even do licensing around that? So I have to think about, even though the world will be completely different in a year, I'm pretty good at predicting things. 1 in 100 comes true. So that's pretty good for predicting the future. But right now, the technology and the capabilities of the technology are so far ahead of how we're using it.
Yeah.
Another open claw kind of moment happens and everything changes. I can't predict what will happen. So all I can do is put research first and constantly think about what's next, just so I can be ready for it in the way I plan, because there is nothing else I can do.
Yeah, no, it's so hard these days, especially around AI, where, to your point, things change every couple of weeks. The concerns move. Fortunately, I think specifically in some aspects of AI security by their nature, securing the AI itself, it's easier to move some of those pieces quickly compared with, say, a firewall, maybe, or protecting hardware. But it is a huge challenge, and I think the best way, like you said, to deal with that is to spend as much time as possible, both with the risk leaders, but also some of the folks on the ground doing the work, trying to understand the real daily challenges. What would I save them a lot of time, or would massively improve their efficacy? And it's interesting that in some areas, people know exactly what they're looking for. Like, look, the accuracy of this is terrible. I'm looking for a way to massively improve that. I don't know how, maybe, but I know that that pains me. In some other areas, folks are not even sure where the pain is coming from. So they would say, this thing over here sucks. I want it to improve, but you need to dig a lot, both with technical research and then spend time with customers to figure out if doing it in a completely different way, which is now much easier to iterate on with AI, is going to solve it for them. Do you have some favorite questions you like to ask folks when you're investigating such a
Um,
New.
um, I need to be careful. My fiance has banned me from
Mm.
talking about AI usage and coolness because I go into tech bro mode and talk
Uh-huh.
manifestos. You
Uh-huh.
know, all SaaS is dead. You can
Yeah.
change. No, before I start talking philosophical, waxing philosophical, I would go and say that I spend every minute that I have free inside agents like Cloud Code.
Yep.
And my purpose is to understand what's possible. I do bring things to production, but that's not my job, right? And I especially try to understand what's not possible yet. What are these jagged edges where the agent can play chess but can't do 1 + 1 = 2? It can do that now, but I would say by constantly failing forward in
Yep.
what I'm trying to build, in what's possible, I discover these edges, and I keep myself as a power user.
Yep.
And a month from now, everything changes. A lot of new things are possible. I have to throw away, which is the hardest thing to do. You worked so hard to create your harnesses, your scaffolding, your infrastructure, your flash commands, your rules, and they now hold you back. The model has improved tremendously. The agent has improved
Yep.
tremendously. And that kind of mindset forces you to be a researcher, not an engineer, not an analyst, you're not an end user. And it's so hard to constantly live in this uncertainty of what will happen next, where I can't
Yeah.
rely on this. It's just not feasible. But you have to stay relevant and to understand what's going on. So I'm a product person,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't code. I call it vibing into the abyss because I refuse to look at the code just to get to the edges. And I constantly create projects just to understand what's possible and to create the next thing and the next thing.
Hmm.
And I come up with
Hmm.
ideas. I stay relevant, which I think for all of us, it's the only thing we can do. My fiance is a vulnerability researcher, right? And we have joke between ourselves. Should we both? I'm a CEO. She's a vulnerability researcher, right? The very top of technology. Should we both just pivot away and go become washing machine repair people? Right? Are we still going to have jobs in 2 years? Well, I don't
Yeah.
know, but I do know it will not. If my job, if 80% of my job a year from now is the same as it is right now, I should be fired.
Yeah. For sure. And it will not be up to us even, of course.
Do you
And I,
remember in the 90s where we are old, right? 90s, my God, where search engines came out, right? And you had web crawler and Alta
Mhm.
Vista and Hasta Vista for the people who did wares and Yahoo, and the
Yep.
search really sucked. But you
Yeah.
kept seeing what the edges are. Maybe I search
Yeah.
this way. Maybe I just write my questions, some forum wrote about it. Maybe I Google hacking came out. They use and quotes and all these, and you learned how to do it. Whereas look at most Gen Z people who did not get trained as opposed to grow up
Right.
with it before ChatGPT, and they would go to the first
Yeah.
page of Google, write it down, give up. And growing up with these tools right now, being power users, so
Yeah.
looking at all these PhDs and the labs, and
Wires your brain in a different way.
it has to, because if we look at what's possible right now with AI and how people use it, people barely talk to ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, and maybe they have a chat. Some people use agents. Some people know how to use agents. There's the agentic flow. It's a robosnake. Take the output, put it into the input, run it again, loops, whatever. Um, some people create the entire scaffolding, harnesses. Then you have power users, right? And anybody, there is no just download the agent and start using it. Talk to it with English in English. It's a
Yep.
psychological barrier. Just download it, start using it today.
Yep.
And it's such a barrier, but once you do it, it's so easy. So I don't need to be the PhD level. I don't need to constantly research the math or the statistics of machine learning. I don't need to be in a big lab. All I have to do is stay the power user, look for the edges, look for where I fail, so that I can stay on top of this.
Completely agree. I'm doing the same. Got back to coding and spending a lot of time building and researching stuff, which is both a lot of fun. It also takes a lot of your time, but you learn incredibly so much. And then when you talk to customers about their biggest challenges today, blah, 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 you understand their world massively better. You can communicate much more effectively with your own team. I think people also take what you're saying completely differently when you're actually at the edges. Like you said, I met one of my friends, a public company CEO, and we met over Saturday night. And at some point we went to this room. He had these Blackwell set up in one room, a few computers in another room, and he showed me how he was working on optimizations on some open weight LLMs. You know, and he's super smart technical guy. Honestly, I did not expect that when you have thousands of employees, but you know, maybe it does make a lot of sense today, which again would have sounded completely crazy 2 years ago. But now maybe there's no other way to do it. I don't know what it would look like in that regard, you know, 2 years from now,
I
not to
don't know what it
mention,
will look like in 2 months.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's but so tell me, what do you vibe code? What projects are you working on?
So in the last 6 months, we've been working on these AI pen testing new product. So for example, the stuff I worked on started from how can you leverage attack surface management deep context, like where are the APIs? Where do you have PII? Where do you have, how do you classify, discover and then classify AI assets, because they tend to be much more interesting and more vulnerable than other things. So how can you play with that plenty of context to make autonomous decisions on what needs to happen next? Then how do you make AI pen testing much more effective and efficient if you're able to feed the model all of that context in a certain way, like being able to exploit production systems for $10, which is, by the way, pretty scary. Fully autonomous, which brings the question also, by the way, we mentioned attackers 20 minutes ago. I don't know if we want to spend much more time there, but it's crazy to me that we're not seeing 1,000 times more breaches, where now you actually can, in many cases, to completely compromise various production systems for $10. I think that attackers, and I said the same about other things 5 or 10 years ago, how come attackers are not doing much more? Maybe that's a whole another conversation, but starting from context, then going to how does AI pen testing, how can it be done not for $10,000 per asset, but 10 or 50 or $100? And then attacking the, okay, now I have 1,000,000 assets. How do I tackle the challenge of what needs to be tested and when, which is actually also an economics question. I have this budget, I have this context about what's out there. It does cost money to do an AI pen test. And by the way, it can cost $10, it can cost $1,000. Sometimes it costs tens of thousands of dollars. So from an economic perspective, how do I manage all of these things? So you need to take a ton into account. No customer I ever met said, here's my formula. Here's how I want to do it exactly. I figured it out. And someone just needs to build it now. But I know how I want this to work. No one that I talked to so far. And there's no vendor that does what I just mentioned. So there's nothing, you know, to copy and improve. So working with our team, you know, from the front, leading from the front in that regard is super fun, but also tiring, because like you said, it requires working until sometimes 2 a.m. or over the weekend on something. And sometimes you'll work on something for a few weekends just to throw it away completely a few weeks later. And then, you know, your spouse isn't super excited that, you know, you haven't joined XYZ over the weekend, and for not in that regard. But that's just the crazy world we live in. If you want to be at the edge and be super relevant and helpful to in our industry, security teams. And again, I have no idea how it would look like, what it would look like in a few months from now, not to mention 2 years, but now it just feels needed. How much are you seeing? I'm seeing some CISOs and very senior leaders doing the same.
I see a lot of them. So if I go to San Francisco, 97 out of 100.
Wow.
If I go to New York, 50 out of 100. I go to DC, 4
Yeah.
out of 100.
Yeah.
But everybody's vibe coding. And the thing is, again, I'll just say this again. A friend of mine had this sales guy call him about GitHub. So when everybody is vibe coding, my question. So here's the thing: I'm really positive about the world. Yes, why would we still have jobs? Sure, there's a lot of issues we need to deal with, but it's so empowering. It's so empowering. So my message, bottom line, we can talk about the death of AppSec and how it's gonna the rebirth of AppSec. I just gave that keynote at OS Global in Vienna. But the bottom line is about us as people. We have to be on top of this. It is not hard. Get an agent, download Cloud Code, Cursor, Copilot, Hero,
Yep.
Anti-Gravity, doesn't matter, and start talking to it. If you don't know how to download, that's okay. Go to YouTube, go to Google, whatever it is. Talk to the agent.
Yep.
Just talk to the agent. And then I would say there are a couple of failure patterns. For example, if you think you need to learn how, you already failed. You don't. Work with the agent. Talk to the agent. If you think it's too big for the agent, you already failed. Talk to the agent. Figure out what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing I would mention is take somebody with you for the journey. Once you've done this, find somebody who hasn't and show them how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not leave people behind, because it's going to be hard enough on us who are semi-technical. We're CEOs. What do we know, right? Hand wavy bullshit. But let's really, joking aside, take people with us.
Yep. Yep.
Bring
Completely
people with us, if you like.
Completely agree. And it's beautiful to see people who have been doing it, like even in sales, for 30 plus years and building applications and actually creating a lot of value by building
And
software.
creating job security for us, because none of these applications are secure and they are not updated when new vulnerabilities come out and their dependencies. And they will do things that are completely weird, like open up Telnet or connect to the world or send your stuff out there or send your secrets. And
Yep.
so there is a lot of stuff for us to do in security. But I'm also looking at security, and there will always be security needs, and there'll always be an adversary. But at the same time, I don't think most of what we do today will still do. For example, beyond, like, the attackers have the ability to detect, to discover vulnerabilities and then exploit them, and so on and so forth. We can use beyond the hump of all the vulnerabilities we need to find for ourselves, which is completely possible. We'll not have, so there's always going to be something, but we'll have zero vulnerabilities. Again, never going to be zero, but Google, it unprompted, came on stage and said, fine, vulnerability detection, we understand. Discovery, we understand. We want zero vulnerabilities at Google within 2 years. How do we get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would even go as far to what, again, people can't accept yet. Zero vulnerabilities at code generation. Even when you look at how applications are built, they are built more securely now. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine told me this. I wish I thought about it myself. If all AI does is bring the entire world, or most of the world, to what we consider today to be average security, that is crazy as a move forward, because the vast majority of the world right now is the 0.001% of security in the world. The math works out somehow. I don't know. I just made it up, but I'm sure it does. So what you're talking about, pen testing, for example, what you talk about security, the attacker technology, we need to bring that to defense, and we need to give defense agents. These are the only two things we can do right this second, because the attacker technology is there and agents are there.
Agree. But do you really believe, Gadi, that on average, software is becoming more secure? And I'll tell you why I don't believe so is because maybe your top 20 applications, whatever you're building, whatever that looks like, maybe the top 20 is more secure. The thing is, from what I'm seeing, and it sounds like you're seeing the same, there is a crazy software sprawl. So maybe you now have de facto 100 times, 1,000 times more projects being created, changed, and the average level of understanding of the people touching them maybe went down by, I don't know, 70, 80%, because you now have 100 times more people creating stuff and changing stuff. So do you believe that the average software is becoming more secure?
I think that right now everything is a mess, but I'm also looking at trends. So for example, you look at architecture, not even code, you look at bugs, and you can see how, well, training data is full of BS, crap, essentially. The post-training and everything that's being done, code architecture is better when you're developing code, less bugs, less serious bugs, and much the same will happen with security. Even if all we do is discovery of vulnerabilities after the fact, we're going to go past the hump of discovering more and more and more vulnerabilities, and we'll be more secure. But I think code generation will be more secure. So yes, there will be more issues. And yes, right now, there is endless code out there that even if it was more secure, it's still more dangerous. And weird stuff happening out there. But I think we will go over the hump and things will be better. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah, over time, there's no question in my mind as well. I have no idea what that timeline looks like, but completely agree. And it's definitely not 5 or 10 years. It's maybe 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, maybe. Although, again, hard to tell these days.
Everything that I used to say 10 years, I now say 2. Everything I used to say 2 years, I now say 6 months. Everything I used to say 6 months, I now say a week. You just can't tell.
Yep. Agree.
I mean, I thought that I know this industry pretty well, and I've made critical mistakes in my life that showed me I don't. For example, in 2014, a friend decided to do an endpoint security company, EDR thing. And I was like, nobody wants another endpoint agent. Is a namespace collision now. It means many things, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody bought his company for 100 million. So I've made mistakes in reading the industry before, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty good at predicting the next move. And right now, I think I can predict the next move for 6 months out pretty accurately. But at the same time, I did not see OpenClaw. I should have seen OpenClaw happen. I did not. Right? And the low probability, high impact events are happening, like they're supposed to happen once in a while, happen so much more often now that any prediction I make will be irrelevant within a month. And the technology gap is so big, I can definitely see how it's going to happen. Something is going to happen. Something is going to, I don't know if it's exploding on faces is negative or surprise us. So the world a year from now will not look the same.
Yeah.
Maybe it will, right? But I have to think that way and it's uncomfortable to constantly deal with change, but I have to make the change cool and fun. Here's one example. I have undiagnosed ADHD, which would surprise you to no ends by our conversation alone, right? I mean, my God.
You couldn't tell, yes.
Right? You couldn't tell at all.
Yeah.
But Claude Code and other agents are Lord and Master Claude Code and shit, right? But essentially made my a few gaps disappear. I no longer have an initiation problem. I just start things. I used to stare at the wall for months before I would start something. Another aspect to this is my hyper focus is fully there. It calls the dopamine hits. It's built like social media. You want to talk to it and do things, and you feel you actually did something. It's not just engagement, right?
Yep.
And I used to have imposter syndrome. Now I'm just an imposter. If I spend enough tokens, I can be an expert to a good degree in nearly anything.
Yeah. On the human level, that's very weird feeling. Yeah. You can get to a topic in chemistry or something completely random, and in 30 minutes get to some pretty crazy insight or what have you, because you saw something in a movie and you were just curious.
So we talked about security, we talked about us as people, we talked about product, we talked about companies, we talked about the world changing around us and the assumptions. One of the other aspects to all this, beyond what do we do with humanity, how do we make sure that when jobs become redundant, people don't become redundant, a lot more philosophical discussions, is the company itself or the organization itself. How do you take people with you? How do you ask them to come along? How do you train them? And some training is required, but people need to want to learn and to innovate, right? Or they'll just stay behind again. And so, for example, there was this research somebody told me about. I didn't see it myself from Netflix, they created 3 training courses, each of them exactly with 5 people or 15, I don't remember, and exactly for 5 hours. More than that, less than that, people couldn't do it or didn't get as much conversion. Or at the same time, I'm looking at our engineering people, not even our non-engineering people, right? Surprise. And we probably could have been on top of Cursor 6 months before most of the world was there. We were, but 6 months before we did. So you have to have infrastructure you use. You have to make it reliable and repeatable. And you can't just use a new tool every day. But sometimes you have to, because a startup starting today would bypass everything I've done the last year in 2-3 months. So I sat down with my VP engineering and we talked, and I asked him, are we an AI company? What does that mean? We build with AI, we sell AI technology. Are we an AI company? And a couple of analogies that kind of popped to mind were the famous Jeff Bezos letter to investors from 2016 specifically, where he says there is a level 1 company, level 2 company, I think, where 1, you still look for what you do constantly. Number 2, you know what you do and you scale, and he always wants to be a level 1 company. And the example he used is AI, machine learning is the latest technology in 2016. Let's not build AI. Let's make sure all our teams use it wherever they can, right? And I remembered also an old co-founder of mine who said, we should be a technology company, digitized, all the way back then. Let's replace even the paper stuck to the refrigerator where we write down what we want, right? Let's make it an online form. Let's be maybe that was overkill, but I got what he meant, right? So we started thinking about this. We started actually. We didn't want to be hostile about this, but we started forcing people. You have to use Cursor. I'm going to sit with you and see how you do it. I'm going to, and then every Thursday we would create a session where the entire company would come on. They didn't have to. We thought about it. Do we force it? Do we not? What do we force? What do we not? And share something they've done or failed with, whether a stupid prompt or an entire product around AI, right? And we kept going from there. So for example, interviews for developers used to be about whether it's lead code or coding tests. And they became for us, can you review code? And can you talk to me about engineering concepts? And later on, it shifted again. And now it's more about, I'm giving you a challenge. You have 30 minutes. You have any tool you want. Access to anything you want. Can you make this happen in 30 minutes? You can see how some people copy paste. Some people use ChatGPT. Some people use an agent. And some people understand, okay, in 30 minutes, I don't have enough time. I have to use the agent agentically and just create a POC and make sure it runs and run tests autonomously and get something done within 30 minutes. And you can see how many people just do it themselves, use AI, turn it over to AI. But it's just, the thing is, we also have to take into consideration researchers, engineers. They didn't sign up for this. They didn't sign up to be harness engineers. They didn't sign up to talk English. They signed up for the therapy of writing code. Right. So the world is changing around us. And for me, I'll say, I look at the very large companies that impose token usage. They say, use more, right? Why aren't you using more tokens? And I was like, dude, I'm like, counting lines of code never worked. It's like the wrong measurement. But now I actually came all the way around on this. What other measurement is there?
Well, there are 2 things you might want to achieve. One is pushing people to experiment a lot and change the way they think. That's one thing. Then there is the track of how do we do this efficiently? And maybe you have to start with the first, because it's such a big change of how you think, how you do things, how you see yourself as a productive person, even, and the image of yourself that you've built for 10, 15, 20, whatever years professionally. But then you do want to, over time, become more efficient. And it was actually interesting for me to see some folks who are extremely smart, who are super focused on the second early on, but until they were pushed enough on the first, they did not, to your point, experiment enough, disrupt themselves.
It's a maturity model, right? You're describing a maturity model of start by using tokens, explore, right? Then can you use them efficiently? Then can you And for example, I think that right now every developer that wants to be on top of it has to spend a day or two or three every week to research, which means they don't code at that time, but at the same time, they can code much, much faster because they keep doing it. At the same time, if coding is just English now, any moment they spend writing code is a waste of their time because that's just 10 minutes of their work. Product should write code. Great, 10 different examples, let the developer decide what to do, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I
Yeah.
will say the large companies that force people to actually not do their job and be behind, but use I understand them now. It's a horrible management move, but I don't think I can imagine something else for them to do.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes in masses or in a certain scale, you're doing some quote unquote stupid things that might, well, in some regards, or can be seen as stupid or weird, but make sense
Yeah.
for a certain point in time and at certain scale, and it actually works or produces enough value, or it's not the worst way to do
And
it.
sometimes you have Microsoft that spent tens and tens of billions of dollars trying to get Copilot for Office 365 work and failed miserably and forced older people to not get to their job to do their actual job, but to use AI and did all the right things. And then OpenClaw comes out,
Yeah, yeah,
so over a weekend.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
rule Microsoft out, right? Don't do that. Don't rule
We'll
Satya
see. Yeah.
out. But yeah,
Interesting developments, as you said, on a weekly basis, sometimes less.
absolutely.
So awesome to chat, Gadi. We're at the top of the hour, I'm being told. Awesome to chat. We should do that again sometime. Really enjoyed conversation and looking forward to seeing you in person
Thank
next
you.
time.
And of course, right, if you want to defend your agents, discover your agents, use your agents safely, remember Gnostic.
Will do. All
Thank
right.
you.
Great to see you,
Bye-bye.
Gadi.
Appreciate your time.
Cheers.